welcome to the Psychologist Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brandon Gamble. I'm an educational psychologist, professor, consultant, and coach. Psychology is a study how to explain, predict, and modify behavior. However, for those who look at what the ancients in Africa knew was the enlivenment and the illumination of the soul. Today, I want to talk about fathers. Looking forward to Father's Day. James Baldwin said, "Fathers and son arrive at that relationship only by claiming that relationship. That is by paying for it. If the relationship of father to son could really be reduced to biology, the whole earth would blaze with the glory of fathers and sons." Again, that's the great author and intellectual James Baldwin. Another quote says, "There's so much negative imagery of black fatherhood. I've got tons of friends that are doing the right thing by their kids and doing the right thing as a father. And how come that's not as newsworthy?" That's from Will Smith, actor and father. So I have a few pieces on psychology news. They're a little bit older, but I think they're important as we consider this Father's Day weekend. In Canada, The Conversation, an online news source for academic research, in 2019 shared a study regarding the many ways fathers help children understand emotions, promote self-esteem, deepen friendship networks, and enhance linguistic skills. And I say those again, right? Fathers, they help children understand their emotions, promote self-esteem, deepen friendship networks, and enhance linguistic skills. In 2013, and check this out, the reason why I bring this next study up is because sometimes we buy into these myths that fathers aren't available or that they're absent or they're not connected, particularly with black fathers. And I'm going to pose a question after I share this research study. So hold on here. In 2013, the CDC reported that black dads, whether living with their children or not, are more actively involved in their children's lives than their counterparts of other races. This is according to Give Legacy. It's a website. Let me continue. Examples of those who live with their children, black dads are more likely than their fathers of other races to provide physical care, for example, bathing, diapers, and feeding their kids, for their young children, read to their children, and help their children with their homework, all on a daily basis, than fathers of other races who also cohabitate with their kids. The report also reveals that among dads who don't live with their children, black dads are more likely to be involved in care, including reading to their children, helping them with their homework, taking them about their days and talking to them about their days and taking them to different activities there. Right? And I want to say that again. Black dads, even if they're not in the home, are reading, helping with homework, talking to kids about their days, and taking them to various activities. Moreover, black men aren't significantly more or less likely to have children than men of other races. Yeah, black fathers are leading the way in connection to their children. What can we learn from black fathers? I'm just going to mull that over a little bit as I share some concepts here, right? Absent father. Some people have really put that on in a label that has really stuck to black fathers, particularly after the Moynihan Report in the 1960s, moving on into the 70s, which was really applied and shared, right? But by and large, for black men, according to this recent data from the Center of Disease Control, black men are not absent fathers. I want to say that again. Black men are not absent fathers. They really engage in fatherhood. Here's another concept. And the basic definition is the state of being a father. And we can talk about the difference between being a biological father or going back to the James Baldwin quote as being someone who's actively engaged and connected, right? But this idea of fatherhood for black men in particular and men in general is interesting to me, in that we're also living in a time where what used to constitute fatherhood has changed to some degree, particularly if we're talking about parental rights, because fathers used to have parental rights up until around World War II. If we're talking about marriage and divorce and remarriage and stepfathering and mentoring, it's a range of things now, which I don't think is necessarily bad or good. It's just different. And our society has quickly moved into something very different than it was for thousands of years prior. So what is that going to mean for us going forward? I don't know if I have all the answers on that one, but I do know that what's interesting, even within our own biology, studies have shown that, and this is coming from a Psychology Today study that was shared by a clinical psychologist, and it says that testosterone drops in men, especially during the first year of the child's life. And this is the last concept I'm sharing about testosterone drop. So during the first year of a child's life, testosterone drop, and it leads a father to more awareness of his emotions. Likely so, he can be more attuned with the child, mentor, and also be more attuned with the mother, I assume. But this is the biology. It's within our genetic code to be connected to our children. Very interesting. Perhaps even during times of stress. Perhaps that is why, and I'm trying to answer that question I posed earlier about what's so special about black fathers that I think the rest of fathers can learn, is that black fathers have a real clear purpose. Given that we're living under current circumstances, I'm celebrating Father's Day in 2021 during Juneteenth, that weekend celebration that's about talking about emancipation. At a time, particularly when black fathers, and I'm talking in 1860s, right, and prior to that in the United States, when black fathers weren't able to protect their children, there came a message, particularly to my family in Texas, and my family is mostly from Texas, and they migrated to California or other parts of the country. But this time, where in 1865, they're receiving this message that no longer are you required to remain under this yoke of slavery. They may try to enslave you yet again, but you're free to do as you choose. Man, fathering in that environment, and then going on into Reconstruction and Jim Crow and other, violent eras that black fathers have had to live through. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we close here, but I want to give an example and stay a bit more positive here, because my father is the example. If you want to hear the whole story about my father, check out our Black History podcast hosted by my sister and me. Just a quick commercial. That said, my father is my hero. He is the surviving patriarch of our family, but he was my hero well before that. Not because he volunteered to serve in the Army, but that is a proud part of our family history. He's my hero not because he was the first in the family to graduate from college, yet he is an extremely brilliant man with papers to prove it. Not because he inspired me to become an educator, although he never pushed me into any career. Well, why, you may ask? Because he made hard choices and sacrifices to be an outstanding father. For example, he chose to skip work to come to my field trips. He took me to see my first movie. He showed me how to throw a baseball and always tell me he is proud of me. He could have had the same career I had. He could have gone on to become a college professor or a rocket engineer. He was brilliant at math. But he chose family over career success. He said, all right, I've done enough schooling. It's now time for me to work and earn a living that's going to be able to not only propel my son and my daughter, but the rest of my family into a better life situation. That's what makes my dad a hero. Now, when I think about all those pieces, my dad and his friends, my uncles, my godfathers, they were all extremely engaged and connected fathers. And they've raised sons and daughters who are just as engaged as parents. I think all the more. And so I'm very, very thankful for my dad. So after saying all this about fathers, what are some of the recommendations I have? Well, A colleague of mine, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, he is a black masculinist researcher and professor up at Fresno State, out in my home state of California. He recommended this week that we call out the names of fathers, grandfathers, and great-grands who passed on before and remember them. Quite often there's stories about fathers that are untold. And sometimes they were not perfect. In fact, they may have been downright mean or ornery, but they helped usually to provide and protect and keep the peace in the era of Jim Crow to today. And that's a tremendous pressure to provide, to protect, and offer peace to a family when you're under threat daily. 2016, and I'm just pausing here in the midst of my recommendations, but 2016 was a hard year for me because I saw 4 black fathers, Eric Garner being one of them, if you remember that time, who were killed by police. There's a feeling kind of that as a man, if you make it, particularly as a black man, if you make it to your 40s and you're a father, you're no longer having to worry about a threat to your life. The threat is internal, like high blood pressure and diabetes. But no, these men were taken out right in front of our eyes on video. And as we saw last year, George Floyd was a father as well. But yeah, the pressure is tremendous. But even despite all that, as the study shows, they are involved, and that's something else we have to remember. That's my biggest recommendation. In spite of all that, black fathers are amazing. So I want to say thank you, Dad. As a father myself, I do not need my children's thanks, but it is an indicator that they understand their part in carrying on the family and what little I've been able to do through, and I believe in God's grace. All right. That's my piece on fathers. So, next time, for more content, if you're waiting in between for next time, check out drbrandongamble.com. You can check him on Facebook page at Dr. Brandon Gamble. Of course, our Black History podcast, hosted by my brilliant sister, Terry Gamble. And the Gold Doctor podcast, we're on Facebook, Spotify, Spreaker, YouTube, and at golddoctor.net. Join me next time as we talk about the latest in psychology news, concepts, and recommendations of what's going on in this psychologist's mind. Peace.